Right, I'm Ken Armstrong. I'm the president and CEO of North Arrow Minerals, and we just thought that with the end of June approaching and summer coming, and it finally has started to arrive here in Vancouver, it might be a good time to provide just a real brief update on North Arrow and some of the news that we're expecting to have come out in the very near future. As usual with these sorts of presentations, I'll be making some forward-looking statements, and I'm also going to be talking in large part to slides that we have been using over the first part of this year. So I'm not going to sort of belabor some of the points. For many of you, you'll know that we're a diamond exploration company focused in Canada, and our real focus are on these orange and yellow colored diamonds at our Naujaat project in Nunavut, and they're a real focus also of this presentation. Diamonds had a really good year in 2021 coming out of the pandemic, and that has remained the case. And I'm just going to update a few points on that because I think it's a real underlying reason just to be keeping an eye on North Arrow if you have any interest at all in the diamond sector. A lot of commodities, as we talked about, have had really good runs, and the underlying equities that are exploring for those commodities have also had good runs, setting aside the current uncertainty and some of the risk that we're seeing in the market in general right now. It remains the case for diamonds, that the underlying commodity is very strong. The companies themselves haven't really reflected that strength that we're seeing, and I'll touch on a few of those points as we go through the presentation here. And all of that, of course, leads into why we think that North Arrow is a good place to at least be watching in the diamond space, because we do have some really important news coming from our Naujaat project on a bulk sample that we collected in 2021. We have a real strong pipeline of diamond exploration projects in Canada, and then, of course, all of this with the backdrop of a very strong diamond market. We've touched on the diamond market. There's obviously rough diamonds and diamonds are produced, but the real important market at the end of the day is retail. The reason that we explore for diamonds is to find deposits that can be mined to produce diamonds that would be used ultimately in luxury jewelry. The best proxy for that is the US market, which is over half of the retail market on a global basis. And 2021 was really, really strong in the US. This slide shows a couple of images and charts that we've used over the last 6 months to sort of show this point. And you can see with monthly sales over the last 5 years on the top chart just how important December is every year. And you can see the real strong bounce back from COVID in April and May of 2020. The lower chart shows annual sales in the US over the last 20 years. And you can really see just how strong 2021 was, with retail sales in the US up over 50%. And I think the important point to keep in mind when we look at these charts now in sort of the middle part of 2022 is that we aren't seeing a bounce back or a return to the previous level of sales. In fact, you can point to jewelers like Signet, which is the largest US jeweler. They're still forecasting sort of low single-digit growth during this calendar year. So sales remain very strong. That obviously has an important impact on meeting supply in order to meet that demand. We've pointed to Louis Vuitton and the purchase of Tiffany and Company in 2021 as an indicator of sort of the largest and most knowledgeable players in the retail space making multi-billion-dollar investments in the diamond jewelry sector. That still holds true. Louis Vuitton has even made an investment in the lab-grown diamond space very recently. So obviously diamonds are very important in what they're doing. And we think that's a real indicator of strength in terms of their interest and support and view on where diamonds sit in the luxury space going forward. Diamond producers, similarly, we've been pointing to the fact that De Beers and Lucara have large billion-dollar plus expansions of their mining operations in Botswana underway. And then also looking at things like the fact that the biggest producers like Alrosa and De Beers always carry an inventory. And we've been using this chart showing Alrosa's inventory versus their sales over the last 7 years to show what that inventory kind of looks like. And then the fact that in 2021, they essentially did not have an inventory at all. Now, obviously, a big change in that will be the sanctions that Alrosa is subject to as a result of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. And that does introduce a whole lot of uncertainty, and it's a very dynamic situation trying to figure out what's actually happening. But the one clear issue with those sanctions will be that Alrosa is effectively a third of global diamond supply, and they cannot openly sell those diamonds on the global market at present. We're seeing some retailers essentially self-sanction as well, and saying that to ensure for their consumers who are demanding it, that they're not selling Russian goods. And all these things are, I think, sorting out what the impacts of these are is still kind of happening in real time right now, but they are important for the short and the medium term at the very least. So that provides then support for the rough diamond price, which is at an all-time high in the early part of this year. And that was on the basis of this increased demand that we're seeing, but also the fact that supply, Russian sanctions aside, is declining. Global diamond supply peaked in 2017 at just over 150 million carats. Last year, it was about 116 million carats, and is projected to flatline at that level with no real projects on the drawing board that could come in and increase that supply. And then, of course, now we've got these Russian sanctions and sort of 30% of global production that is up in the air and unavailable. So with that in mind, it's really important that we are looking for more deposits, and that's where North Arrow sits. It's where we have sat for the last half dozen years or so, with the real focus. You can see here our pipeline of projects within Canada, but our focus has been Naujaat at the north end of Hudson's Bay, a significant inventory of orange and yellow diamonds. And we collected a bulk sample there last year, and we've got on our website some really good resources and descriptions of how that sample was collected and why it was collected and so on. So I won't belabor that, but it was the purpose of getting that sample to get a larger parcel of the fancy orange and yellow diamonds from the Q1-4 deposit was the real driver for the investment of our partner Burgundy Diamond Mines in the project. We have announced some initial results, and I'll touch on those results, but the final 30% of the sample are coming very soon in July. As I mentioned, our partner Burgundy has financed this bulk sample, and when that program and the results are finally announced, then they'll have earned a 40% interest in the project, and North Arrow will retain a 60% interest, subject to a letter of intent that we have in place with Burgundy, where they could elect to take a second option to increase their interest to 60% by funding a larger 10,000 ton bulk sample. A great photo of the work site here that we've been showing. It shows the sample area, which is right in the foreground of this photo. You can see some of the reclaimed sample pits. We took this photo in August of 2021 after the bulk sample had been collected. And it just shows there's not a whole lot of infrastructure here. We have a drill that's stored on site, but not a lot of disturbance. And that's because right up at the top of the photo, you can see the hamlet of Naujaat, right on the ocean. We're able to work from Naujaat. 2/3 of our workforce were employees from Naujaat. It allowed us to sling out our excavators, collect the sample very efficiently during the summer of 2021. And it's just to get across, again, as we've been trying to point out, is that the Naujaat project, the risk profile for it is very different than for other Canadian diamond projects. This isn't about discovery, finding kimberlite, finding microdiamonds, and mineral chemistry. We have cleared all of those hurdles. This sample is entirely about determining whether there are bigger diamonds, and in particular, whether the fancy colored diamonds occur in the bigger sizes and what their quality is like. So really important just to remember that it's rare for a diamond project to get to this level of evaluation. We're quite far along the path. And so when we're looking at the results from this bulk sample, I think it's fair to say, well, what are we trying to answer? What are the questions? And there's really 3 questions that we're trying to answer, and we need to get answered when it comes to the diamonds in the Q1-4 deposit. And this sample is going to answer the first 2 of those. They're going to answer whether those fancy colored diamonds are there in sufficient numbers, and give us an idea of how big they get. And that's really, really important for our ongoing evaluation of the deposit. The third question, of course, comes around quality and how much they're worth. This sample will give us a really good start on that, getting an answer to that question, but we are going to need to do some further work ultimately to answer that in the form of a larger bulk sample. So when we look at the results that we put out so far and what we're trying to get, I think maybe the best way to put it is, we will get enough diamonds that will allow us to take our analysis using plots like this one that shows the size and the frequency. So the frequency in this case is on the y-axis, the size is on the x-axis of the colored diamond parcel, and get more data points that ideally will allow us to project this line or this distribution out as we show with this red line. And then there'll be a point where you see that red line crosses sort of the dash line. It's at that point, which is in terms of sizes, where we're proportionally seeing more colored diamonds than non-colored diamonds. And if we can end up with a plot that looks something like this, then that'll be really important for showing that there is a real positive value upside in these colored diamonds, and that they will bring to the overall evaluation of the deposit. And the other piece of important news for us would be to look at the diamonds themselves, and getting some good quality stones that we can have cut and polished and ideally certified at the GIA. These two diamonds on the bottom of this slide are rough stones. They were just under half a carat, and they were 0.46 and 0.47 of a carat, and we had them polished into sort of the biggest, best stones that we've seen from our previous work. And if you keep those in mind, and we can take a look at some photos of diamonds that were recovered in the initial results that we announced in April. These two diamonds are both over half a carat, so they're both bigger than the diamonds that were on the previous slide. With the one on the bottom at 0.82 is almost twice the size of what we had previously recovered. So that's a really good indicator that we're getting bigger diamonds in those really good qualities. But overall, looking at the results that we announced for that first 70% of the sample, we did and go through talking about the fact that it's at a coarser cutoff at a 9 DTC size. And we just did that because it's sort of how we're able to recover the diamonds from this parcel, and the diamonds in the finer sizes aren't really important for our evaluation. We have a good handle on what's there. We need to know about the coarser stone. So that's why that sort of coarser than usual cutoff when looking at diamond results as reported for projects like this one. But importantly, essentially 20% of the diamonds were classified as being fancy colored, and that's a large proportion, and that's really important because that means the diamonds are there. We've hinged a lot of this on trying to get an idea of what the fancy colored diamond population looks like, and they're there. So now we can analyze it. Over half of those fancy colored diamonds are classified as having either an intense or vivid color saturation. That's really important because those are the two highest saturations that you can have, and they're really important indicators for value or potential value in the diamonds. And then also importantly, over 90% of those colored diamonds were classified as having orange as the primary color. It doesn't mean that the polished diamond is going to be orange, but it means that there's a possibility. You can't make orange if it's not there in the rough stone. And why that's important is that yellow diamonds are really valuable. They're rare. Orange diamonds are even more valuable and even more rare. And they could have a really important impact on our valuation of the deposit if with some of the cutting and polishing that we might be able to do going forward with these stones turns out to be positive. We still have 30% of the sample to go. Those results will be out, as I mentioned earlier. We're looking at very early July right now. So this project, really nice photo, shows our bulk sample here at the laydown right by the community of Naujaat. Again, just pointing out that with the project being in Nunavut, it's in a jurisdiction where you can permit a mine. Agnico Eagle has 3 gold mines in this region that have been permitted over the last dozen years or so. It's on tidewater, which lowers costs. Q1-4 is a big kimberlite. Our resource goes down to 200 meters, but we've drilled kimberlite down to 400 meters plus. So the deposit itself is going to be bigger. It's a large inventory of diamonds. And there's lots of blue sky. Like the deposit itself could be bigger. The project hosts another 15 kimberlites that need to be fully evaluated. And then within North Arrow, we have blue sky in our pipeline of projects. And just really quickly highlighting Pikoo, which is a discovery that we made in 2013, 2014 in Saskatchewan. It's within 10 kilometers of Saskatchewan Highway 911, really close to infrastructure. An exceptional initial discovery at the PK 150 kimberlite, really high diamond counts. We've done more work, made more discoveries. Importantly, we've been working on additional targets. We know we need to get back to this project. It's a project we wanted to get to for quite a while, and we're just in the planning stages to do that, to drill test the new targets that we've come up with. Because another thing that's really changed since we made this discovery over the last 5 years or so is that the whole concept of size of deposit and new mining technologies and mining methodologies that sort of make projects like this one, where maybe you've got a smaller kimberlite that's high grade, look different. That you don't need to have necessarily that larger tonnage that we were initially thinking that we needed to find, and it makes it all the more important that we get back here and test some of these additional targets, because the results here were really spectacular, and we need to test these other targets because we think there's more similar discoveries to be made. So we'll be looking to do that as we go forward. And then we've been talking about a gold project. It's a legacy property within North Arrow in Nunavut, up on Tidewater at Hope Bay. The yellow boxes you see on the photo on the right-hand side are our leases, and they importantly sit immediately along trend from the Doris gold mine that Agnico Eagle is operating. Our Oro leases cover the exact same stratigraphy. It's the same setting, it's the same structural setting, same rocks, highly prospective. The photo in the middle here shows the infrastructure at the Doris mine, and then in the background where our leases lie. So it's a highly prospective area. If this was in Red Lake or in the Abitibi, the property would have been fully evaluated by now. That's not the case, and we are working to bring a partner in, and that'll ideally see some exploration work happening this summer. So that will be a catalyst for us to get an agreement announced at Hope Bay, but also, and most importantly at Naujaat, getting the final part of the bulk sample results out, the analysis that will go with those results, getting that information out, looking at cutting and polishing scenarios going forward. Obviously, a decision to be made by our partner Burgundy on whether to move forward with the secondary option or not, are all things to look forward in the diamond space. As many of you will know, obviously, with any junior company, people are important. We have a lot of experience looking for diamonds. It's why we remain focused on the diamond space, because we have the track record of finding them and evaluating deposits and getting them into production in Canada as well as in Africa. And we have the support of some pretty key shareholders as well. So this slide highlights our structure right now. But just keeping in mind that if you're interested in diamonds and following the space, you really should be keeping an eye on North Arrow, because we are well positioned for this commodity, which diamonds are, when it's at this point with some real positive indicators for it going forward. So please stay tuned as we get our news out, and thanks very much for listening.